Milk Outside a Bag of Milk Outside a Bag of Milk has 5 possible endings. In the form of dreams the main character could have when she goes to sleep for the night. Each dream represents a different perspective on how the main character views herself, which also hints at how difficult her life has been with the struggles she's had. For this video, I'll be attempting to analyze each dream in detail and how it ties into the overall storyline of both games in the series. I'll briefly cover the overall storyline, but if you've never heard of this game or have never played it before, you can either check out my full gameplay videos for both Milk Inside and Milk Outside, or the shorter summary video where I attempt a psychological analysis on the storyline in general. As with my analysis video, I'll be referring to the main character as Milk-chan, and in case this isn't already clear, this video will be full of spoilers, so please proceed with caution. Alright, let's dive in. Before I cover the endings, let me first cover the endgame conditions. The first is referred to as the first death. Some may refer to it as the strangulation death, and this is unlocked by selecting "That's the thing, I have no idea. This is weird" during this selection prompt, which occurs shortly after Milk-chan finishes her time in the bathroom. The game cuts almost immediately to this surreal scene where Milk-chan makes indirect commentary on her father buying milk and how much distress it causes her. At this point, there is a very brief strangulation occurring before it cuts back to Milk-chan talking normally to the player in her room. The next endgame condition is the second death, which can be achieved by selecting "You'll end up returning to that subject anyway" during this scene, and then after finding all fireflies, which I'll cover in a bit, selecting "There's no way someone cares about you that much" during this scene. This encourages Milk-chan to eventually go to the balcony and, after some brief commentary, metaphysically jumps over the edge, and as she is falling, she recounts her story of how she was severely cyberbullied by someone after meeting them online and opening up to them about her trauma. As with the first death, it abruptly ends and then the scene flashes back to Milk-chan inside her room once more. Another endgame condition is the number of fireflies discovered during the point-and-click phase, which is the only point-and-click adventure part of the approximately 2-hour game. While searching the entire room can yield more information revealed to the player about Milk-chan's past, only the discovery of fireflies contributes to the endgame condition. Additionally, it doesn't matter specifically which fireflies are discovered, only the amount matters. Lastly, the final endgame condition is the discovery of the cell phone during the point-and-click phase. This may be overlooked because it's so small and it's tucked away at the corner of the screen, it's easy to miss. But finding this is crucial to unlocking one of the endings, so that's important to note in case you've played the game and have constantly gotten stuck with one of the other endings. Okay, now we'll actually cover the endings themselves. The first we'll cover is the "you won't get it" ending. Players can achieve this by triggering both the first and second deaths, and by collecting all 5 fireflies. However, this ending can also be achieved if none of the other ending conditions are met, so this is considered the default ending. I can see why that is the case, because the events that unfold mirror the events of the first game. Milk-chan runs into this boy named Truska who happens to need milk and proceeds to go to the supermarket to buy some. His behavior is unpredictable, but very similar to Milk-chan's actions from Milk Inside a Bag of Milk Inside a Bag of Milk. Truska approaches an individual, maybe to inquire about milk, but the individual is visibly frustrated with the boy's inability to communicate concisely, which causes Milk-chan to feel embarrassed and help him out so as not to draw attention. Once the two reach the checkout counter, Truska's behavior annoys the cashier and everyone else waiting in line, to the point where the others start insulting him and overcharging for the milk. Despite feeling annoyed herself, Milk-chan handles the situation by paying the cashier and dragging Truska out of the store, and afterwards they walk towards a highway, mostly in silence. In the end, Truska eerily turns to her and states, "It seems like you're not helping me at all." Milk-chan awakens from her dream and bolts up in bed with tears in her eyes before the screen flashes to the final scene and the credits roll. So what does this ending reflect? What's it supposed to represent? To me, this felt like the most straightforward ending because it's literally a recreation of the first game, Milk Inside a Bag of Milk, etc. Even the color scheme is the same. In case you haven't watched or played it, the first game has you as the player guiding Milk-chan to the supermarket to buy milk and return home, all in the span of 15 to 20 minutes. There is no Tresca though, because she is the one who is acting like Tresca. She is the one with difficulty bringing herself to the supermarket to buy milk, struggling to interact with someone as she's trying to find milk, and causing a scene at the cash register. If we as the player are mean enough times to Milk-chan, she verbatim responds with what Tresca said in her dream. Looks like the player isn't helping me at all. So why is she having this dream of someone else acting like her? And if the other person is acting like her, why is Milk-chan so annoyed in her dream? Wouldn't she be more understanding? The thing is, dreams are subjective experiences, so there could be a number of reasons why Milk-chan is dreaming about someone else acting just like her while she is observing her behavior. It's quite possible that her dream reflects either her own self-awareness or her desire for some sort of self-understanding or self-exploration. If she feels uncertain or conflicted about her own behavior and psychological tendencies, observing herself and someone else in a dream could be Milk-chan attempting to gain a new perspective on her personality. Her dream could also mean that she is already self-aware of her behavior and how that negatively impacts those around her. Given that she's experienced some heavy trauma in her life already, coupled with the possibility that she has some sort of behavioral or social disorder, she could be frustrated and conflicted with her personality. She's suffering, and no one around her understands. She doesn't even understand herself, despite being somewhat self-aware. After researching guides and other theories online, some speculate that this dream actually represents Milk-chan's father as a little boy who experienced the same mental difficulties that Milk-chan experienced, thus resulting in this dream showing a generational cycle that Milk-chan unfortunately can relate to. This may line up with a theory that I'll mention later in this video, so stay tuned and let me know which theory you agree with more. The next ending is titled, Is Anyone There? And it's unlocked by only achieving the second death and finding 4 fireflies in her room. It's possible that other combinations can trigger this ending, however, this was just a route that I followed in my playthrough. I felt this was one of the more eerie endings out of the 5. In this one, Milk-chan awakens in this cold, dark, and tiny room with only a single door in front of her. The room then starts to slowly expand, and she tries to reach for the door only after running around the room with the walls continuing to expand. The door becomes out of reach for her, but she continues attempting to reach it since she can hear someone else on the other side speaking to her. Once she manages to reach the door and open it, however, the floor gives way and Milk-chan falls through. She ends up in this endless grassy field with the moon lighting the night sky, and after a bit of time she can see numerous dark figures gathering around her before she awakens from her dream. Let's break it down by covering the first part of the dream where she's in the dark room. It's possible this part of the dream reflects her feeling of being trapped or confined in her waking life, most likely related to overcoming her trauma. The room itself could symbolize a sense of being limited or restricted in some way, while the inability to reach the walls or door could represent a feeling of powerlessness or helplessness. As for the door and the person on the other side, this could relate to Milk-chan's feelings of anxiety or fear of the unknown. In the room, she is isolated and most likely lonely, and she is cut off from the others. But what's on the other side of the door? As she is reaching for the door, however, everything starts to expand, and no matter which direction she runs in or how hard she reaches, the room continues to expand. This could mean Milk-chan is feeling overwhelmed or even engulfed by her fear or anxiety. It could also mean she feels trapped by her own thoughts and feelings, and we can kind of see that in her waking life as she continually reflects on how her life has occurred thus far. What about the second part of the dream? Milk-chan finds herself in an open field at night, and soon she starts seeing human-like shadow figures closing in on her. Unlike the closed room where she might have felt trapped, now she's in an open field with an endless horizon, which might indicate a feeling of being exposed and vulnerable, while the moon in the sky could be illuminating her inner self. In a way, this can also mean a sense of isolation, since the endless field and initial lack of people around could mean a feeling of disconnect from society. With the human-like shadows, that feeling of being watched or followed could be an additional aspect that makes her feel vulnerable. But I want to actually go out on a limb here and make the claim that this dream represents the cyberbullying from Milk-chan's waking life. Okay, let me explain myself. In the first part of her dream, she feels isolated in that dark room, but there is someone on the other side of that door who is calling out to her, and Milk-chan is desperately reaching towards that door to interact with the person on the other side. The inner room expands along with her sense of feeling overwhelmed, and then she finds herself in an open field. Maybe this is the part that represents her opening up to that individual that she mentioned in the second death. Unfortunately, that individual spreads around the struggles that Milk-chan opened up about, and people on the internet make fun of her. These could be the shadows in the dream, since her life is exposed now as with the open field, and the shadows are closing in around her with the same intensity that the cyberbullying devastated Milk-chan. Look, feel free to disagree with me, but I really think this dream represents the negative consequences that Milk-chan faced when she became vulnerable to someone on the internet. I think this aspect of her past also relates to another dream she had, but let's cover the next ending. I looked down as achieved by avoiding the first and second deaths, and only finding 3 or 4 fireflies. In this dream, Milk-chan is on a staircase that spirals this infinitely tall column, and she is terrified but mentions that what she is feeling is familiar to her. Seeing the vastness of this infinite space is frightening to Milk-chan as she reflects on her helplessness. Soon after, this abstract entity thing hovers in and provides some interesting commentary, which I'll touch on in a bit. Milk-chan then proceeds to descend the staircase, and after closing thoughts from the entity, Milk-chan awakens from her dream. Okay, now that I provided the synopsis, let's rewind this and break it down. Milk-chan is on an infinite spiraling staircase surrounding a column, so what does that mean? So, according to the first search result that came up when I typed dream about columns with winding staircases, I get different interpretations that all revolve around an individual's personal growth. Okay, let's dig deeper. The location of the stairs is also an important factor to consider when interpreting dreams. If you see stairs at a public place or unknown place, it defines the issues that are related to your behavior and interactions with the outer world. Yeah, this place seems unknown to me, so far so good. Walking down the stairs is a sign of suppressing thoughts of your subconscious mind and failures that you may be dealing with in your current life. The very act of walking down the stairs is indicative of hesitation and regression to your subconscious mind. It may also be indicative of reconsidering past issues and events of your waking life and analyzing them to fix or develop your emotional state of mind. If you sense fear when climbing down the stairs, it means that you are scared to face your suppressed thoughts and negative feelings. Fear of getting down is also symbolic of failure to acknowledge issues or events of the past. Lastly, staircases that are winding or spiral may be symbolic of rebirth and a significant journey to self-discovery. Okay, so it seems like this dream is also interpreted as Milk-chan's self-awareness of her mental illness struggles, and maybe the tons of other columns that are around her can represent other people who face similar situations to her. This constant battle with managing emotions and her environment and how others judge her may not feel like it's worth it to her. And what about this entity, or how she calls it, super creature? I was initially confused by whatever it was saying on some points, so while working on this video, I figured I'd try to decipher some of the more confusing bits. For the most part, it appears to reflect on the abstractness of humanity, which Milk-chan tries to block out before commenting that she is no longer in control of her body, in the sense that she can't just stay still on the staircase, she must choose to either ascend or descend. Then the super creature says something interesting. It says, "The crowd notices blood on Wozik's hands. He runs away. Mendel appears. He has nothing about him, apart from his excessive grace and hidden elegance. He walks out to the center of the stage. First act begins." Okay, who is Wozik? And Mendel? Mendel? So after another brief Google search, I came across a full-length video of the German opera Wozzeck, or Weizsäck, which was originally composed in the early 1900s. I also came across this research paper that pretty much explored the idea of genetic disposition and cited the plot of this opera. Without going too deep into this rabbit hole, which you should totally check out because I thought it was neat, Wozzeck follows a man who is subjected to physical and psychological abuse from his superiors as part of an experiment. And as his mental health deteriorates, he becomes increasingly paranoid and delusional. This bit about blood on Wolzek's hands and running away is in reference to the last act of the opera. The opera also implied that Wolzek may have inherited a predisposition towards mental illness from his mother, who was also mentally unstable. Thus, the opera explores the complexity of his mental state as a result of complex interplay between his environment, social circumstances, and personal history. So how does this relate to Mendel. The opera doesn't explicitly mention him, but Gregor Mendel is widely recognized as the father of modern genetics and pioneered the law of inherited traits in the mid-1800s. So the exploration of inherited traits and the effects on an individual's mental health from the opera is consistent with the principles of modern genetics first articulated by Mendel. Okay, thanks. For the rabbit hole, how does this relate to Milk-chan? Well, if we take a look closely at the tragic dynamic between her and her father, we might be able to make a stretch here by speculating that her father may have suffered through some form of mental illness. Even if he was fed up with his daughter's behavior, why would he go through the effort of buying milk, which he knew she was allergic to, drag her out of school to go home, force her to drink the milk, and then attempt to strangle her to death, only to then take his own life? Is this implying that Milk-chan's mental illnesses are inherited? Alright, I'm done stretching here. Please, Nikita, just tell me if I got this one or not. I also didn't imagine I'd dive this deep into this specific ending, so if you felt I was on the mark, maybe you should check out the subscribe and like buttons on the bottom, or leave a comment sharing why you disagree. I'd appreciate the interaction either way. This stream ends with the super creature empathizing with Milk-chan by validating her struggles, and also giving her confidence to keep pressing forward in life because each day is precious. Do you get it? Do you get it? When you notice how people look themselves in the mirror, look at your own reflection and realize it exists in reality, do you get it? The next ending we'll cover is Everything is Fine, which is achieved by avoiding the first and second deaths, but all 5 fireflies must be found. In this one, Milk-chan is in a cycle of getting ready for school by staring at the mirror and wondering how the kids at school will treat her. She concludes with stating that there's nothing wrong with looking different, but after each cycle, it starts again with Milk-chan staring at a severely deformed face every time, eventually culminating with her staring at a blank face and stating that she feels wonderful, and in fact, cannot wait for her first day of school. She wakes up after the last cycle occurs, which is her staring at the back of her head in the reflection. So please tell me, mydream.com, tell me what this means. You are not facing the problems you have in your life, but you are hiding from the reality of things. A disfigured or blemished face, whether it be your own or someone else, means a false persona. If it is your face, you are trying to hide your appearance or someone is trying to bring you down. Okay, thanks. But on a serious note, the stream feels a little more straightforward. Milk-chan is attempting to create this facade to those around her that just isn't who she truly is. The more she tries to fit into this mold of social acceptance, the more she loses touch with herself, until she gets to the point where she doesn't even recognize herself anymore. Like, she is turning her back on her true inner personality. I mean, all of us on some level put up a front depending on the people we interact with. But I think what's unique in this case is how magnified Milk-chan's struggles are with trying to fit in with those around her. It's not so much a dream of self-awareness as with the other ones covered, but rather one which highlights Milk-chan's attempts to fit in with society and her overall dissatisfaction with herself. Last but not least, we have the Are We Friends ending. The deaths must be avoided, and all 5 fireflies must be found. However, the player also needed to have picked up the phone in the corner of the room, and this ending is the only one where the phone needs to be discovered to unlock. In this dream, Milk-chan engages in a text message dialogue with an automated ordering service for a pizzeria. At least I'm convinced it's automated because of the session timeout alert at the end of the dream. Can you imagine having this type of conversation and with a straight face listing the pizzeria's current special offers? Anyway, Milk-chan opens up about her racing thoughts, her feelings of loneliness, and her feelings of helplessness to change her situation. As this is happening, she takes a trip through the city and to the pizzeria where she's come face to face with a distressed cashier. Is it possible he was able to read the dialogue between Milk-chan and the ordering system in the hopes that she'd decide on a special offer to purchase? The commentary she shares throughout the dream is distinctly similar to the eerie scenes in her other dreams, which makes this ending feel like the story is coming full circle. And right before she awakens, Milk-chan sees a road sign that matches the symbol on her shirt. So in this dream, we get a better picture of her mental state as she is messaging this pizza delivery service. With her comments about feeling isolated and without purpose, it's likely that she's exhibiting behavior of someone who struggles with depression. But why text a pizza delivery service? Why not write in a journal or draw in the sketchbook she has in her room? Well, she has mentioned multiple times that she doesn't like being alone with her thoughts, so writing in a journal may help her process her emotions, but at the end of the day, there's no one around to read it. By texting this pizza delivery service, there is that off chance that maybe anyone out there might read it and give her a sense of human connection or validation. Even though she did that once before and was cyberbullied, she doesn't feel like she has anyone else who can understand her situation. And humans are social creatures after all, so there's going to be that tendency to reach out and find someone who sees us. In my research, I found a lot of people mentioning how this dream had the most quotes that just hit them deep, and boy, can I relate. I think what hit me the most was the road sign I mentioned earlier, which matches her shirt. In mathematics, that symbol represents an empty set. All of Milk-chan's dreams are interwoven with each other in some way, and I believe the developer achieved this in very creative and subtle ways. One dream represents how Milk-chan feels she is perceived by those around her. Another dream represents her desire to change and have this facade to be accepted by others, even if it means losing herself in the process. Yet another dream represents a traumatic moment in her life with cyberbullying, which further perpetuates her feeling of loneliness. The next dream provides more verbal confirmation of her feelings of depression, anxiety, and trauma. And lastly, the final dream is an allegorical representation of Milk-chan's struggles, but in addition adds the hope of moving forward because life has meaning and is worth continuing, even if it doesn't feel that way at the moment. I just love and appreciate how much depth both of these games have, so much so that I felt the original psychological analysis video I did on both games did not do it full justice. The endings themselves just deserved its own video, and I'm sure there's still so much more to cover, but hopefully this initiates some awareness into the deeper meanings and heavy themes these games cover. Before I end this video, I wanted to mention one last thing, and that's the fireflies that Milk-chan asks the player to discover in her room, which is the only point-and-click portion of the game. I wondered why the developer used fireflies as the thing we had to search for in order to achieve certain endings, and although this might not be accurate, maybe Nikita just loves fireflies, I did find this poem by Russian poet Marina Tsvetaeva, titled Fireflies, which felt very fitting to the theme of this game. Fireflies, fireflies, the flickering of life, running in the field like comets in the grass. In a sleepless night, the nightingales trill. Fireflies, the needle leading to the depths. Lights, lights, how swift life is. Short life without a name, without a purpose, in the tiny homeland of earth and ashes. Lights, sparks unquenchable. What spark is it? Where does it come from suddenly? As if from distant foreign lands. The night in the field, boundless like an unseen race. Fireflies, golden grains of life. I couldn't read you the original Russian, but in this poem, fireflies are used as a metaphor for the fleeting nature of life and the human soul's search for meaning and purpose. A purpose that Milk-chan and maybe some of us are still searching for. Do you agree with my analysis of Milk-chan's dreams, or do you have anything to add that I might have missed? There were some aspects I glossed over in this video because I covered the overall story in my other video, which you can check out here, but if you liked this video, please don't forget to cautiously hit the like and subscribe button, especially if you're lactose intolerant. If not, you can confidently hit the like and subscribe button anyway. Lastly, if you have any requests for psychological horror games you want me to cover next, feel free to leave a comment down below. Take care, and don't forget to buy milk.